Thank you for joining us today. I'm Amruta, and I'm the Senior Technical Writer at Cockroach Labs in New York City. And the topic for today's presentation is contributing docs to open source projects. And I'm very passionate about this project because Cockroach Labs is an open source company, so I've learned a lot working there. And also I've seen the benefits of contributing to open source projects that we will discuss today. During the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me at any time. And yeah, let's get started. So this is today's agenda. So last weekend, I conducted a survey about how familiar everyone is about open source and GitHub. And from the responses, I came to know that people have heard of open source projects, but they don't really know what it is and how to get started with them. So we will start with a brief introduction to open source projects and GitHubs, and then see why you should contribute to them and how to do it. And then a few disclaimers / important notes at the end. So even if you don't really know what are open source projects, you use them on a daily basis. So Android, hello? Yeah, sorry. Android is open source, Linux is open source, Firefox is open source, WordPress is open source. So all the software, like most of the software that we use on a daily basis, some of them is bound to be open source. So what exactly are open source projects? So when I was trying to find information about this, I came across this video. This is a video by Daniel. I love her videos because she uses Legos to explain technological concepts. And I'm not going to play this video right now because she made this video open source, which means that I can use the content and extend it for our discussion. But when you get the time, you should definitely go and check out this video. So how she explains open source is this. Suppose you have a piece of land and you want to build a house on it, and you really like your neighbor's house, so you ask them for help, you ask them for their designs, and they refuse to do it. So this can be compared with the closed source companies like Microsoft Internet Explorer or iOS software. So you decide to build, so that your neighbor refuses to give you the designs, so you decide to build your own design. So you put together a foundation for the house in the best way you possibly can, and then you open source it, which means you make it available to the public. And then people start looking at the designs of your foundation and they quite like it. And then they start volunteering to help you out with it. So maybe somebody is a foundation expert and he sees some bugs in the house and he's like, okay, I'll help you fix those bugs. And then somebody might be a expert roof builder and they would be like, okay, let me help you build the roof. And then a gardener might volunteer to add some more jazz to the house. And then somebody might offer to draw a map so that people can get to the house. So contribute documentation. So by everybody's combined projects, you finally have your nice open source, beautiful house. And then people use that as a design for the base of their houses. So that is the concept of what is open source projects. So is that clear so far? Any questions? Okay.
Yes, excuse me. Yeah.
Yes.
If you could just show a slide that is the one which is for this one.
Before this one?
Yeah, one that is, if you can just go back again. Yeah, in this, if you have explained that if someone help us, if we have some bug fixes and all. So who's that someone you're talking about?
Yeah, so I have a real life example, so we'll get to that. I think I can better explain with an actual software example.
Okay, sure.
But what I mean is, this is our project that we started, and then when you put it out there on the world, people who are interested in it and people who have the skills to contribute to it volunteer to help us out.
Okay, that one. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, now that we have discussed open source projects, let's move on to Git and GitHub. So these terms we hear these terms very often, but there is a slight difference between what is Git and what is GitHub that is kind of important to understand. So Git is a free and open source distributed version control system. So it is like any other version control system that we use in our day-to-day jobs, like I can't remember any of them right now, but I'm sure you use it at your jobs. But the thing with Git is that it is primarily command line oriented, so that can be a bit daunting for the beginners. It is mainly oriented towards developers, so it's difficult for other new beginners to use Git. So the company called GitHub, which is a for-profit company, tried to solve that problem. They created a web-based interface for Git, and they also provided more features such as bug tracking and feature requests and wikis and documentation and stuff like that. So that's the basic difference between Git and GitHub. Git is the free open source distributed version control system, and GitHub is a platform to use Git. So let's see some GitHub terms and workflow. So when we are thinking of the GitHub workflow, think of a normal version control system workflow. That might help. So these are the basic terms that you will hear all the time when you're contributing to open source projects. The first and foremost term that you will hear is repository. So in our example, you remember the basic foundation that we put together. So we would need to have some place where we can put all the files and all our designs at one place, right, at one central location. So in GitHub terms, that location is called a repository. So think of it as your project folder. And then all the changes that you make to the repository are in one master branch. So like the basic central place where everybody's changes will finally be merged is called a master branch. So now suppose the gardener in our example wanted to contribute the design for the garden, but we don't want them to make changes to the master branch directly because we don't know if it will break something else, or like it's just a safer practice to have a separate version where they can make their own changes, work on it, and then merge it eventually. So they would make a branch out of it called a feature branch, and then they would add their designs. Then they would reiterate on their designs and then commit to it. So this is another term you will hear very often, that you commit your changes to the branch. And then once you are happy with the changes that you have made on this branch, you will do a pull request, which is like you will make a request for your code to be merged in the master branch. But you can't do that directly. The reviewers or like the other people working on the project will review your changes, and they might make some suggestions. And then you will work on the suggestions. And then when everybody is finally happy and approves the request, that is when you will merge it into the master branch so that your changes reflect in the final version of the product. So these are important terms to remember: the repository, branch, commit, pull request, and merge. I'm going to wait for a second. Any questions so far? Okay. Another important thing to do is remember is that the languages that are used to write documentation primarily are Markdown and Restructure Text. These are like the preferred languages of the open source world. Markdown is easier to use. It is very similar to XML or HTML. Restructured Text is much more stringent, and it has a steep learning curve, at least in my experience, but it is very powerful, and it can be extended pretty easily. But these are two languages that you will come across when you want to contribute to open source projects. Any questions? Now let's see that in action. Okay, so this is the Cockroach DB docs repository. So I'm going to walk you through this interface to show you all the things that we discussed so far. So Cockroach DB is an open source project, which means our code, our docs, everything is visible to the entire world. Anybody can come and access it. Anybody can come and contribute to it, but it has to go through a stringent review process for it to be finally merged in the final code. So we have a separate repository for docs, which means we have all our docs content in this repository. As you can see, we have the actual documentation pages in this folder, and then we also have the platform where we generate and distribute our docs here as well. So this is what a repository, a GitHub repository looks like. We are on branch master right now. So this is like the main version. If I make a changes, this is where it will be finally be added to. And then you can see that there are currently 15 pull requests, which means me and my team members have asked for permission to like review and merge our documentation into the main master branch. And then, yeah, there are 35 branches. So each one of us is working on a different feature right now. So we have like a branch per feature. So you can see that there are 35 feature branches and one master branch. So these are the basic terms. Is that clear? Any?
Amruta, this is Amruta?
Yeah.
So my question is, this master branch that you're showing right now, is it only for the documentation or it's for everything like code and documentation both?
That's a good question. So if you go to the main so this is like the Cockroach DB, like the whole repository, and then this is the code branch, like code repository of it, and then we have our own docs repository.
Okay.
So we have like a main repository and then like, I guess, sub repositories of it.
Got it.
I work primarily in the docs repository. There are a few instances when I have to work in the Cockroach DB repository, but not like the Cockroach repository, but not very often. I primarily live in this repository.
Got it.
Okay. So now that we have seen what a repository and the branches and everything looks like, let's try to make a pull request. So when you get started with any project, one thing to do is to go to the issues section. So you're over here.
Sorry,
yeah.
Amruta. Since few of my students is sitting here and they are experienced, but still I know there's some questions must be going in their mind. Just give, if it's better if you can give some background, like the questions maybe there in their mind is that what kind of tool do you use? Like GitHub is itself a tool that you need to understand it. And what?
Yes.
So why we use GitHub, and if they are not using GitHub, so what kind of mistakes they are making? So so can you give some brief to them? So like I'm using Git Bash, right? So it's just a thing. So many companies still I have worked where they don't use GitHub. So
right.
So they may be using some other version control systems. So can you give some more background so that they will feel more connected? So they may not be feel connected. Like now, if I start with talking cherry pick or commit and all those things might be a little confusing for them. So you take a 5 minutes time extra, no worries, and elaborate something more. Or if you want, I can do that.
Yes. I'm not too sure I understand the question, so it would be better if like you take it up.
So those who have seen the GitHub, you all must be aware of what is it. And if those who haven't worked with this, it's primarily a developer kind of tool where we put our work. We all technical writers in doc repository, as Amruta is working on a doc repository, or developers, they put on their work, and commit is like merging it into the software. How should I come with example? Like when I have to make an online help, right? So for online help, for one my project, 2-3 technical writers are working. So I write 5 topics, and Neri is writing 5 topics, Soumya is writing 5 topics. We all put our document in this repository. Now, being their senior, it is possible that they want me to give a look into their document. So now I will look into their document, right? So, or somewhere manager will look into that document, and if he feel that it is okay, he will commit it. When it will commit it, it will go into the main branch. Main branch, like it is live. right? If I feel like it need more review, then what I will do, then I will tell my technical, I can comment there also as well, right? So message will go to them like you now has this given this kind of comment and you can make changes. Right? So after that changes, if again I will do a review, you can have multiple reviews, and then I will commit it again, or somebody else can commit. All those approvals can vary organization, and then it will go and merge into the repository. Now, when it is merged into the master repository, that UI will automatically pick those topics and it will reflect it in the online help. Okay, so forget the online help part also, it will go into the master. And when new build will be created, there those topics will be there. Okay, so it is kind of version thing. Am I clear? Anirudh? Pranshu? Chandrima?
Yes, sir. So in this case, if we want to say that GitHub is like a Confluence tool, can you say that?
It's not a confluence.
Like you can say, just like if you're commenting and if you're saying something like that, if you compare that just for a layman.
No. Okay, I will tell you something.
Okay.
We will go into something. So, Sumit Batra? You there, Sumit? What tool you are using Global Logic? When I was in Global Logic, that time I was not using this, but are you using there now? Swamita? Anyway, come on. Yeah, we want to be churcha. We want to be very live. Please ask the questions. Yeah, Swamita?
Yeah, hi. Yeah. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, do you have any question?
Right now, I don't have any. If I come across any, I will definitely put it up in the forum.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So I think now we are on the page like what is GitHub is, and okay. So it's again yeah, Amrita, you can start from here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that explanation. So yeah, where were we? Oh yeah. So this is what the portal looks like, and these are the basic things that you will have to work with if you want to contribute to open source projects. So let's try to do one change to one of these things. So when you go to a new project, one thing you can do is go to the issues section and see what are the kind of issues that are open and that you might want to pick up. And the easiest way to find an issue that is a good starting point is go to labels and see all the labels. So in Cockroach DB, when the WTD writing day label is a good point to start, because we created this specifically for people who are new to Cockroach and want to contribute documentation, and we try to make it very easy. So all the issues that we think are good beginner issues, we have marked them with the WTD writing day label. So I'm going to demonstrate one issue to you. So let's take this one. So when you open an issue, this is what it looks like. So you can see that it is still open, and then it has all the details over here about what change needs to be done to which docs. So over here we say that the task is to go through the docs in the develop section of our doc set, and then add the copy to clipboard function for executable code blocks, which just means that copy paste this thing to all the code blocks that you think can be executed. So that's what we're going to do. So you go to our doc set, and it should open. Yeah. Then and the thing is to go to the develop section of the docs. So you go to develop, and then I know that the create database doc is a good example where we can do that. So basically you just open up a doc in our doc set from our doc website. And then over here, if you see on our doc website, we have the contribute function. So we have tried to make it really easy for people to contribute to our docs. So you just click contribute and then say edit this page. When you do that, you can see that the source code for the documentation shows up. Now the language in which this is written is Markdown. If you see, it is slightly related to HTML, but like you use this syntax for headings and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a learning curve, but it is pretty easy to learn. So this is what Markdown looks like. And then what we want to do is copy this and paste it at executable blocks. So having worked on this often I know that this is an executable block. So I'm just going to paste it at the required places. Then okay, so this is all the change that needed to be done to this document. And then when you come here, scroll down, you see that you cannot commit to master because it is a protected branch, which means that I first need to send it for review. And then only after it is reviewed and approved can I merge it into the master, and then it will go live immediately. So once you merge things with master, it means that it is going to go live. So I'm going to commit the change now. Yeah. Update the doc. And then it tells me that it's going to create a new branch for this commit and start a pull request. So all I have to do is say commit changes, and it's going to do all of it for me. It is going to create a new branch, it is going to create a new pull request, and it is going to send it to our docs team for review. That's all I need to do to make a contribution to our doc set. Any questions?
Hi, Amruta. This is Sangeeta.
Hi.
Yeah. So in this case, the pull request and the approval and merging to the master branch is taken care at your end. I mean, the contributor doesn't need to bother.
No. So what will happen is once we get that pull request, Jesse, this is Jesse, my manager,
Okay.
he will review it. And then if he thinks that some changes are made, he will let you know in the comment section. So he'll write a comment here and you will get an email saying, okay, Jesse commented on your request.
Okay.
And then you have to resolve that comment. And then he gives you the looks, we call it LGTM, which is looks good to me. And once you get that, then you can go ahead and merge it and it will go live.
Oh, so we after a review, we need to go back and say push it to the master?
No, Jesse will do that, but you will need to resolve the comments if he gives you any.
Okay, okay. So we it's like the contributor will incorporate the feedback also, and once it's all done and he says looks good to go, then it merges into your branch.
Yes, once you after the LGTM, we take care of all of it. You don't need to do it.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much.
Sangeeta, typically this process or this cycle can vary from your company to company, and we manually do this workflow. In few company you have to have two reviewer. In few company you can have one reviewer. In few company those who are making change can commit. So this is completely you can do
depending on the open source document that they have.
The workflow which you have defined in.
Right.
Okay, that will depend on that.
Yes, that's an excellent point. So another thing to look for when you get started with an open source project is look for the contributing.md or the readme files. And over here, like most open source projects who want contributions from external people have some kind of contributing guide. So this is ours. So if you see, we have a very detailed thing about how the process works, what are the tools you use, and how do you make contributions. So that's a good pointer that when you get started with an open source project, first thing you do is look for their contributing guide. Does that help?
Yes, Amruta, I think that internal, like you are the internal of Cockroach DB, so your process will be different from those who are from outer world, like for us.
Yes. Which brings to my next point. Now let's go and see some other open source project. So the thing is, the Cockroach DB is a pretty technical product, right? This was a pretty easy change that we made. But if you want to make some serious contributions, you might have to install the product and try it out on your own and do a bunch of technical stuff. But GitHub and open source is not limited to only software. So another project where I contribute is the Write the Docs repository. So for those of you who don't know, Write the Docs is a tech writing organization. It is like STC probably. And so they have their own repository for where people contribute a beginner's guide to technical writing, or what to do if you're the only writer at your organization and stuff like that. So it is basically a technical writing repository, if you might So this is the repository for write the docs. And the best part about learning GitHub is that because it is a pretty well used software, once you get the hang of it for one project, it's fairly easier to move to other projects and contribute there as well. So it's worth putting in the time to learn it so that it opens up a whole lot of projects for you to work on. So see, it has the same layout. It has the code and a pull request, and we are in the master branch and stuff like that. So again, the first thing we do is go see the README file. So this is their README file, and it details their process of how to contribute to their project. And they obviously have a very different process than ours, but again, it is a very well documented process. So it should be fairly easy to follow this guide and get started with Write the Docs repository. And one thing I wanted to show here is, where are that? Yeah. So if you see, they use RST, which is Restructure Text. So if you see their source code, it is very different than the Markdown text. So these are like the two well-used languages in open source docs, Markdown and RST. And I tried to contribute to their docs, and I had a hard time learning RST, but it was well worth the effort. So let's see another one. This is how they format their things using RST. So it's pretty different than what we are normally used to. So that's the thing I wanted to show in their repository. Any questions? No?
I have a question, Amruta.
Yeah.
So it is not, the RST is not similar to the Git Markdown?
In my opinion, it's not. I find it pretty different. But yeah, that might just be me.
Okay. The syntaxes you have, what you have shown on that file, it is. I mean, it looks similar to the Git Markdown, the asterisks and headings and all. The
asterisks too. But then if you have to like make a link, it is a completely different thing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So so the thing I was trying to make a contribution for the Write the Docs project at the Write the Docs conference. And I struggled with putting in the links so much. I spent so much time trying to figure that out. So again, that might be just me, but I find RST much difficult to learn than Markdown.
So you have a separate, cheat sheet for that RST?
No, because I just did it for one file, so I kind of winged it.
Right.
If we are thinking of moving from Markdown to RST, if we do that, then I think I'll have to invest much more time to like actually develop cheat sheets and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that.
Sumit, please go ahead. Sumit?
Yeah.
You have a question? Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, I just want to know actually, is there any specific scenario?
Sorry?
Sumit, you can
I said, is there Hello?
Yeah, please.
Hello?
Sumit, please ask.
Yeah, I just want to know actually, is there any specific scenarios where we use Git or GitHub?
I'm not very sure I understand the question. Can you elaborate?
The question is that, is there any scenario where we use Git or GitHub?
In my experience, whenever you want to contribute to open source talks is when you actually Git and GitHub are basically just version control systems, and they are pretty popular within the open source community. But like you can also have closed repositories, and like you don't have to open source it. So anytime you need version control systems, you can use Git and GitHub.
Amrita, I will take 2 minutes here. Yeah. So in our organization, in Gemalto, we use it for version control, for commit, and for our document and code repository. And we are completely closed, and we are not open source, right? So it is used. It can be used for any purpose where you have to use a code repository or doc repository. For open source, yes. And so Sumit, try to understand why is teaching us GitHub right now. The topic is contributing in the open source, right? Like suppose my blog, you have seen my website, my blog, right? If you I want you to write in my blog, okay? So directly you can do that, but suppose it is a code, you want to code something in my website, right? So there should be some open source where you can write your code and give it to me so that I can directly merge into my website. So for that purpose, GitHub is used. Am I right?
Yep.
Yeah. So in that case of scenario, we use GitHub or Git. Am I clear, Sumit? Sumit, are we clear?
Yeah, clear.
Okay, you can switch off your video if you want.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Amruta, Vitish here. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I missed a couple of minutes, so I had 2 questions actually. The first is what is pull requests? What I understand is it's like a work item. It's like a request for documentation or something like that. My second question is if I as a writer start contributing to an open source project and I have for example like about 40 issues which I'm supposed to document, but I work as a full-time writer somewhere, and I can give maybe in my own free time I work on these open source projects. So do I have to necessarily give a particular number of hours per week, or I can just come and work on any issues anytime and document them whenever I have time or something like that? Like, how does it work?
Awesome questions. So for your first question about the pull request, I think I can demonstrate it better in the next point that on my slides. So let's park that for now. And about your second question, it's completely volunteer based, right? So the expectation is that if you volunteer and if you we call it claim an issue, we expect you, like we as in anybody who works on the open source projects, expects you to see that till the end. But there is no there is no expectation of, okay, you have to document all of these issues or you have to work on it for this much amount of time. That is a completely volunteer driven thing as per your time, as time permits for you, and like the other workload that you have to manage, and it's like completely up to you.
Okay, so it's not like your work is being tracked, or just like what happens in any regular job. They are not tracking your work. Okay.
No. They are tracking your work, and if you commit to an issue and you do not work on it for a while, people might ping you and ask you okay, what's going on? Are you still able to work on it, or should we assign it to somebody else? But it's not a compulsion that you have to commit to a certain number of issues or certain hours of the week or something.
Okay.
You just have to fulfill the thing that you committed to, and if you can't do that, you just have to tell people, update them about, okay, I thought I could do this, but something came up, I can't do it anymore, can you please assign it to somebody else? And that's fine.
Okay, that's fine. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Yeah.
Hi, this is Amrish. I just want to know, are you recording this session?
I hope so.
Yes, we are recording.
Okay. So because even I, missed the beginning part of the session. So it would be great if you could just, distribute the link, the recorded link.
Yeah, you will get that.
Okay. Thanks.
I know this is a lot of information to grasp, but bear with me. I hope it will get better as we look at some more projects. Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks.
Awesome. So let's move on to the next part, which I think is what everybody was interested in, is why contribute to open source projects. So we have heard, people have told us many times that you should contribute to open source projects and it is so beneficial and stuff like that, but nobody talks about why exactly is that. So in my experience, I have seen 3 benefits of contributing to open source projects. The first one is building your online portfolio. So when I took the survey last week, I got a few questions saying, okay, how does it help me build my online portfolio? And there was a person who wanted to change industries, and he was like, can the open source projects help me build my online portfolio so that I can change industries? And there was a fresher who wanted to use open source projects to prepare work samples, and I was like, totally, you can do that using open source. And that's how this is how. So let me show you my profile. So when you make a GitHub account and you start contributing to open source projects, GitHub builds your profile. So if we go to my profile, this is what it shows, that I have made 381 contributions in the last year, and I contribute to the Write.docs repository and the Cockroach TV docs repository. And my last contribution was to the was to the Cockroach DB docs about an export CSV function. So if somebody wants to go and check out all the things I have done, they can just go and see my GitHub profile. And this is all my work that I've ever done at this company. It is available for everybody to see. Anybody can go in and see the exact work I have done. So, and this opens up. Okay. So this is what the change looks like. So they can go and see, okay, these are the files that I edited. This is an entire file that I wrote. So they can see, okay, what is my writing style? How do I structure content? All the tech writing skills that you can possibly want to see in a candidate, or you want to demonstrate to your future employer. This is like proof right there that, okay, this is how I work. This is what I can do. This is my skill set. And possibly these are my shortcomings. And I can also show that, okay, this is how I work with team members. I can coordinate with them. I can incorporate their feedback well. I'm well receptive to feedback, and basically I can work in teams. So and then people can just go and click around and see all the things that I have done at a company and in other open source projects. So it demonstrates all my technical writing skills for future employers. So it shows that I can work in teams. It shows that I can explain complex technology. I can work around information architecture. I can edit stuff, and that I'm self-driven because I'm gone and contributed to other projects as well, which is nobody asked me to, but I did it on my own. So that shows that I can take initiative, and I can I'm pretty self-driven. So I think these are the 2 main things that I can think of about or the benefits of why you should contribute to open source projects, is that your work is online for everybody to see, and that builds up your credibility a lot. So even when I go to other companies now and meet people with from other companies, they tend to search me on LinkedIn and on GitHub to see, okay, what are the things that I'm interested in, and what are my capabilities. So it is an incredible credibility building tool. Any questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
hello. Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah, this is Naresh. I actually work here as a technical writer in Stockholm, but I think this is quite new thing for me as well, because I have worked only on user documentation, like the products. As I worked with Ericsson, but I have only written the documentation for radios. And now I am working with Swedish company called Delaval, and now they produce robots. So now I only write about their robot installation or troubleshooting documents. I think this is quite new thing for me, so that's why I signed up for it, because I have never worked. I think this is more precisely as an API writing kind of things, if we say, or something.
Not really. Cockroach
Not
Labs.
exactly. Yeah, I know, and not exactly. But I think this. I mean, here most of the. I mean, the title which we have the writing with codes and things. They are with term it as API. I don't know why, but working.
Yeah.
But I think since I have never worked with GitHub, So I think this can be a good idea for me to just to go with and start with some GitHub or profile account, because maybe
Definitely.
in future if I want to change my field, because now I now only work with the big products like radios and robots and things like that. Hardly I sometimes work with software. So I think for me as a new thing, so I mean just not for me, but as a general, it's just a good idea to learn new things if you haven't worked with GitHub previously. But
Yes,
of course,
definitely.
as you said, if you have worked with GitHub, then you can build your profile as well. So that's beneficial from both point of view, I think.
Yes, and that is an excellent segue to my next point, which is, okay, you can, so you saw my portfolio. So that's what I wanted to demonstrate, that, okay, you can go and check out my portfolio, and that is how you can build yours as well. And the second thing is, I'm lucky to work at a company which is open source. So my work is visible to everybody. But what if your company isn't?
Amruta, I
What?
want to take up
Yeah,
again a couple
yes.
of minutes because I think again Naresh is a little bit confused
Sorry.
because he was comparing this with API. Okay, so Naresh,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to do anything with the API. Again, understand why Git. Amruta is why talking more about Git in this. Okay, so it is nothing. Like my case, I am working in Madcap Flare. Okay, it is just a repository where I put my work. Okay, and from where software is built, that documentation or that components is get pulled into the software. Okay, so it doesn't have to do anything with the writing. Okay, be clear. There's nothing to API. There's nothing called coding or something like that. You will use your own tool. You will use Madcap Flare, Words, whatever you are using. You will use it. Just you have to put your work into the Git. Okay, that's it. Is it always GitHub is, and from here, when a build is created, that is our automated. We have automated build. So that pull the work from here. Okay, so my work is safe here. That's what we are using Git. Okay, so don't take it in like it's a writing platform or something like that. Why in open source? Open source because there can be multiple other tools also, but here you write something for that open source company for Cockroach DB and put it there. So from there they pull your work. It is just like that. Don't confuse it with API or something like that. My 2 cents.
Hi, I also have a question. Can I put it up?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah. Amruta, Shomita here.
Hi.
Like, hi. Like when we are talking about building online portfolio, so see,
Mm-hmm.
I am someone who has not used GitHub, but again, my interest lies in building online portfolio. Suppose I, as a technical writer, when I, like these days, when I go for to other companies for interview, they sometimes often ask for online portfolio. So suppose I, as a technical writer, wants to create an online portfolio in the GitHub, then like where should I start from, so that I can put the contents I want and build a beautiful portfolio out of it, where I can pull up the things on my like my personal thing. Is that possible, and in what way?
Oh, okay. So let me phrase this correctly. So the whole point about contributing to open source projects is to actually do like write documentation for other open source projects, which in turn helps you prove your technical writing skills. So if, okay, let me give my example. If I want to apply for a new job, I can just point them to my GitHub profile, and this is my online portfolio, right? All the things that I would want my employers to see, that okay, I can work with teams and all the other things that I talked about. This is a demonstration, like the show don't tell thing about of my portfolio. What I think you are saying is that, can you write documentation and create your own portfolio apart from the project? Is that the question?
No, my question was, suppose I have a document in place, but again, I love the document and I want that in my portfolio. So I can, like copy that document and paste it in my GitHub, in my profile.
Oh yeah, definitely. So the easiest thing to do would be to create your own repository, call it your online portfolio, and put all the things that you want in that
Yes,
repository.
yes, that one.
Yes, absolutely. So that the way to do that is just go to your profile, go to repositories, click new, and then just follow the process.
So in this way, I can upload my documents, my work, right? And which I can make public or private.
Absolutely, yes.
So when I want to share it with other people or individuals, so I need to just send them the links.
Yes. So this is, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I got your point. Okay, Amruta, thank you.
And for contributing in the open source, it is not at all necessary that you need to know GitHub.
Sorry?
Okay.
For contributing in open source, it is not at all necessary. It's not at all, it's like it is not necessary that you should know GitHub. You can contribute also without knowing GitHub. It is not necessary that you should know GitHub.
But,
GitHub is just a tool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ram here. So adding a point to information developers, to work on the GitHub, we need a Git Markdown. It's a style where the GitHub can understand that language, and we can save those files in the GitHub.
That's not actually a requirement. That is just the standard practice, but you can have other kind of files as well.
Can I save a Word document in GitHub?
Yeah, it's just a file repository.
Yes.
I'm thinking like, the GitHub will accept only the Git Markdown files.
No, so we use Markdown. Write the docs uses restructured text. You can use any format that you want. It just depends that the tool that you use to distribute or like publish those documents needs to be able to use those documents.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Ambarish, you have some question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, what's the difference between Git and GitHub? Both these.
So Git is the free open source versioning system, and GitHub is a for-profit, like they earn money based on the platform that they created to use Git. Like Git is the underlying platform, and GitHub is something that they developed on Git to make it more user-friendly.
Yeah, Aditya. Yeah, Aditya, please. Aditya, you're not audible. Yeah.
Yeah, Aditya here. Just wanted to know whether this recording would be shared later.
Yes,
I
sure.
missed most of the part of the session.
Yeah, completely.
Because this looks a very interesting one, and looking forward for more sessions like these.
Okay. Yeah, sure, we will do that.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much.
Hi, Amruta.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm just trying to understand. You're right now. You support. I forgot the name. Cockroach documentation for Cockroach, right?
Cockroach DB, yeah.
Cockroach DB, right? So, is there some kind of an integration of GitHub with Cockroach or something like that?
So Cockroach DB is the software that we develop, and GitHub is the repository that we use to store our code and our files and everything. So it's just a file storage repository system.
Okay. Okay. So again, so I can use GitHub to support any other open source project. You support Cockroach D. I can support any other. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So just the repository, like version control system that I can use to work on any project.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, Amruta, please go ahead.
Okay. So where were we? Oh yeah, building online portfolio. Now, suppose you want to get started with a new project and you want to like build a portfolio, but your company is not open source. This is the project that I would recommend. It is a good starting project in my opinion. So Mermaid, hello.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So Mermaid is an open source project to like generate diagrams and workflows, and it is a pretty simple product to understand, and they have some documentation in place but not all of them. So that is what they did, right? They issued a request for contribution. So if you now go to their contribution portal, you can see that okay, this is the all the content that they have so far. They have the README file which tells you how to contribute to it, and then you can follow their process to set up Mermaid, and then you can just start contributing to their docs. So like if you see this thing, this is I think a very prime project for technical writers, because you can see that there's some content there, but it can use editing, it can use information architecture, it can use all the other technical writing skills that we use on a daily basis. So I think this is a really good starter project for technical writers, and I want to contribute to it someday, but whenever I find the time. So this is my number one recommendation for getting started with contributing to open source projects. Any questions about Mermaid?
Amruta, I have a generic question. This is Avantika. I have a generic question. Like typically, how do we pick and choose projects that we find interesting? Because certain industry or certain area where I want to focus, how would I know that there are projects on GitHub which cater to that industry or that domain?
So the common advice which is given in this scenario is like, look at the thing that the software that you use on a daily basis, and then see if they're open source, like Firefox, for example, and Firefox is open source. So you can go and check out their repository and see if any issues interest you that you would want to contribute to. So like the generic advice is pick a project that you're already familiar with, a software that you already use, see if it is open source, and if yes, go and contribute to it.
Okay, but I cannot like sort as per the industry or something like that. Like if I want to focus on a specific, like for example, database or something like that.
Right. In that case, just go to Google and type open source databases.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just type open source and then whatever industry you want, and then you'll find the projects in that industry.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. And the final thing, and I think this is the most interesting one, is that this is very rare, but it is possible to earn money by contributing to open source projects. And one project that I know pays for open source contributions is GitLab. So like we have been talking, GitHub is just one tool to contribute to open source projects. This is another tool called GitLab. And obviously they also are building an interface for Git to make it more user friendly. And they actually have a pretty well-detailed community writers project, and they have a very, very stringent review process. But if you pass all of it, then they pay you like $200 per article, which is like pretty good money. The only disclaimer I have for this project is that it is a very, very technical project. So the kind of articles they are looking for are highly technical. They require a lot of time investment and investigation and just playing around with stuff. But if you have the time and if you are inclined to learn new technology, this is one project that I highly recommend. I know the manager for this documentation team at GitLab, Mike Lewis, and he is very helpful, and they are really building out this program. So if you are pretty advanced in the open source community, or if you're pretty decent with technical skills, check out this project. And these are the open issues that are up for grabs right now for GitLab. So you might want to go and have a look and see if any of them interest you and you want to pick them up. Any questions about GitLab?
Hi, Amruta. How were you able to access these issues just now from GitLab?
Oh, so if you go to the GitLab community writers page, they have the issue tracker right at the top.
Okay, so it's just there. Okay.
Yeah, it's just there. Okay. So we saw 4 open source projects today. We saw Cockroach DB and Write the Docs and Mermaid and Community Writers Program for GitLab. So here's my recommendation for getting started, like actually contributing to open source docs. If you just want to get started with GitHub and just figure out what the whole process is and just like try them out, I would suggest that you start with the Cockroach DB beginner friendly issues, which are the Cockroach DB issues marked with the WTD writing day thingy that we saw. So that is a good starting point. If you don't want to do that and you just want to like have a very, very basic thing, you can check out the Write the Docs thing. Again, writing day. So the Write the Docs repository has a lot of broken links and stuff. So this should be a pretty easy fix, but a substantial amount of work. You don't have to fix all of them. You might want to just like try to fix a few and just try out the GitHub workflow. So this is another good starting point. So these are like pretty low entry barriers for beginners to get started with GitHub. The Cockroach DB Write the Docs, Cockroach DB writing day issues and the Write the Docs issues. And if you want to like build up a substantial documentation portfolio, I would suggest that you take a look at Mermaid. I think they are a really, really good project to get started with. You can contribute a lot of docs, you can really help them out, and it is a really good project. So this is my next recommendation. And also if you are very well versed technically and again want to invest the time and efforts and earn some money, check out GitLab. So those are my 4 recommended projects. Any question about any of them? Okay, so here are a few tips, a couple of tips. The first thing is when you come across a new project that you find interesting, don't jump in directly. Start by following the project, or take some time to observe how the team works, observe who is making the pull requests and how the review process works, and just take time to learn how it's done for that particular project, and then figure out what needs to be done and then go do it. But don't jump in directly. First, take some time to get familiar with the project. And a few important things to remember is that the open source projects are mainly volunteer driven, which means that the developers and maintainers are also working on the project on their own time and may not be getting paid for it. So it is very important to be respectful of that and make sure that we do not add to their stress and add to their work in any way. And which means that we need to put in our own efforts, read all the available documentation, or try out the product on your own and ask for help only if we absolutely want to. Like it's not recommended that you go and even before you read anything, you ask people for help or ask people to explain stuff to you. That is a strict no-no, in my opinion, in the open source community. Do your homework, do everything that you possibly can on your own, and then ask for help. People will be much more inclined to help you if they know you have already put in the efforts. And the final thing is, again, the open source community is pretty straightforward and direct. This is something I had to learn because in the Indian workplace, I have never received such direct feedback and criticism. But that is something my professor taught me, is that if somebody offers you feedback, it means they took the time to care about your work and think through it, and they're helping make you better. So you should be grateful for that. And you should be offended if they don't offer you feedback, because it probably means they did not care enough about your work. So don't be offended by feedback. Take it in the right spirit and work on it, and just try to make the project the best it can be. So that's my presentation. Any questions? Hello?
Yeah, any questions? So one thing I will like to add, if somebody has a conclusion in this, contributing in open source is not the only way where you can create your sample work, because it is of interest, because when we go for interview, people normally ask, can you show your sample? Although it is understandable that technical writers cannot give their work because of confidentiality, but also they ask for sample work. Okay, so it is one of the good thing by which you can create your sample work. But we should not, if somebody is not getting what is GitHub, and you don't have a time to learn this, there's nothing big deal. When you have a time, do this, learn this. And it's very simple to learn. Not because when I joined this company, first time I was exposed to GitHub and I learned just in a couple of days. So it's very simple. But there are many different ways you can create your sample work. It is not only the only way. So if anybody is getting confused with this, that okay, I will have to learn this to make a sample work, did not get bogged down by this. And this looks like very technical, like CLI commands and all those things I need to know. No, it's not that. Well, you need to know very basic commands. That's it. Very simple.